and welcome to Dream It, Dare It, Do It, a podcast about living the life that you want. And thank you for joining us. I'm here with my new friend, Amy Crippen. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
How
You
you
got your
doing?
puppy?
Yes, my puppy. For those of you listening audio, you can't see her, but my puppy is, if I don't take her with me, she's basically gonna cry the whole time. So might as well just take her, and she's part of the show. So how are you today? It's a beautiful day.
Oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful day. It's just like sun shining. I took some time to just, even though I'm super busy, I took a lot of time to go for several walks today just to get like that sunshine and take a little break, so it's been beautiful.
Yes, it's it's what is it called? The Indian summer.
Oh, yes.
It's
Yeah.
Indian summer.
Mhm.
So it's probably one of our last days of this beautiful 60 degrees. And then it's going to start being cold. And I may complain.
Yeah. 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 Being cold's not fun. That's for sure.
So I want you guys to know that I met Amy during a webinar. She's the friend of a friend, basically, and we kind of like we became Instagram friends, and then we became Insta friends because she was looking at my feed, and I was like, oh, ooh, ah, ooh, and she was looking at my feed, and she was like, oh, ah, ooh, ah. So I said, we need to do a podcast together. So here we are.
Yeah. So interesting how like that the interweb can bring people together, right? And you can get the vibe through the interweb. Like, that's my people.
Yeah, it's very cool. I like it. And I've always had these thoughts that I was weird, because I guess the people in my surroundings weren't always about the stuff that I was. I think that the more I think about it, I'm nerdy and I'm owning it and loving it.
And it's interesting because being a dork for something is actually, everyone is, right? Like if you're like really into sports, you like love it and you're a dork for sports. Yeah, we might look at that and go and normalize that at a different level than, I don't know, being into astrology.
Yeah.
But it's like, it brings you joy, it brings you happiness, it brings you life, give
the podcast is called Dream It, Dare It, Do It. And just as a background for you, because I don't think I've ever told you, but Dream It, Dare It, Do It was basically my company way back when I started being self-employed. I said I need a company name. And back then I was listening to Charmed. I don't know if you've ever watched Charmed, but I'm a Charmed freak. And in Charmed, there was P3, the restaurant P3. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a D. So I'm going to call it D3 for no apparent reason. And then somebody said, well, what does it mean? And I was like, I wasn't going to say, well, it's because I'm watching Charmed and they have P3 and I thought I should do D3. So I said, it actually means dream it, dare it, do it. And I actually fell in love with it. I actually I love it. I love to dream and I love to dare and I love to do stuff. So I stayed with it, right? But it's been, a few years, few decades since I started that. And my relationship to dreaming, daring, and doing has changed. And I wanted to ask you if you, well, first of all, I told you I was weird. So first of all, do you think I'm weird for thinking that? And second of all, hopefully you don't. And what do you think of dreaming, daring, and doing?
Oh my gosh. So first off, no, absolutely not weird. I think it's so innate in us to imagine, and the daring part, like that is actually kind of funny because do we need to dare ourselves? Can we just do it? Yet there's that, I think the daring is like that resistance in us, like But like whatever that is, it can be a different thing. Like, oh, I don't think I can. Oh, I don't have the resources. You can't see the possibilities of it coming to life. It could just be multiple things. It could be financial. It could be energy, whatever it is. And yet to create is so natural within human beings. We are like creative, and doing that, like, taps into that flow that just seems to flow right through us.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you're the second one who brings up daring in that way. And I think it must be like my first language is French. So I still have some connotations that, the things that I say in French don't necessarily translate specifically.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of daring, how I see it is like not listening to all the negative noise in your head that tells you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's really how when I pronounce it, when I say dream, well, it's like what would you like? Like what seems to be fun? What seems to make you go, oh, like that, right?
Yeah.
That feeling. And the daring is whatever that little voice that's telling you, no, don't do that. That voice of reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll hear my parents. Sometimes I'll hear my parents talk to me, and as I grew older, I really got that. In the beginning, the voice of my parents was the end all and be all. It was like if my parents would say this, then I would be like, okay, I gotta do this. You gotta listen to your parents. I'm from that generation. But as I got older and I really worked on myself and my inner knowing, like I really was like, I gotta listen to my inner knowing. I started to see that my parents just had fears. They were human beings. They weren't gods. They were human beings. And so now I kind of like go, okay, so that's the voice of mom.
Yeah.
Is the voice of mom a voice of wisdom or a voice of fear?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how the daring came on. It was kind of like, okay, well, okay, so you hear that, but go ahead. And then the do it is just doing it. It's just like, it's a fuck it. I'm doing this, just like this podcast. This is not my first podcast. I've had other podcasts before, but I still had this voice in my head. You can't do this. Nobody's going to listen to you. Blah, blah, blah. I had this whole thing. And at one point I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And some people will listen and some people won't,
Yeah. And that will always be the case.
Yeah.
Right. So we can get in our head what numbers of people will be the numbers that will like listen or not listen. And yet that's literally just in our imagination. We won't know until we start doing it,
Yeah.
And it, like that's what I see for myself is like meeting that resistance. I can feel it, I don't know where it comes from all the time, but I can feel like, okay, I'm meeting something. And sometimes it has a different quality to it. Sometimes it's actually like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to go that path, and other times it's like, no, I'm just full of bullshit and I need to go for it anyways. Sometimes it just varies. I don't know. It's got a different feel for it. Like the pull to like overcome the hurdle of that resistance is stronger than the resistance itself sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I know that you have a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And that you are a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Or that like, so what do you do for your job?
So I'm a clinical research nurse. I've worked in nursing for about 7 years, and I started research, I want to say about 4 years ago, and I worked with like adults and pediatrics and oncology, so cancer research primarily. And then I recently took a job where I monitor trials. So I kind of like project manage. It's kind of like a project management role. And so now I don't work with patients. This is my first job, and it happened right before, well, I want to say I was doing it for about 4 or 5 months before the pandemic shut down.
Yeah.
And I had a really hard time at first, like this, like, I felt like I was like a soldier, like not going to war, you know, like I'd been a nurse so long, and this is the first role I contemplated whether or not I wanted to like leave patient care. But this role was a very good move for me. I like kind of wanted that space away from patient care for a while. And then I discovered in that process before, like I discovered, oh, wow, I want a coach. Like I want a wellness coach. And that came from the space of having more of that like emotional bandwidth, you know, that like was currently always with my patients at the job. But now I could serve more in that preventative care realm, the community. And that really interests me. Because there's no better time to take care of yourself than when you're healthy. You know? Yeah. And I completely understand what those barriers can be, because I've also am a human, and I've had all of those excuses pop into my own damn head along the journey, right? Of like what it means to take care of yourself. And there's so much misinformation out there, and there's almost like too much information. So I really don't have like a method of coaching people, as much as I'm very good at like meeting people where they're at and helping them discover what works for them. And alongside, like I really approach it from like curiosity and joy and happiness and well-being, from being from that center place. So, I just use my resourcefulness, and I don't know, I somehow I'm like, oh, I think this would be a good resource for you. And it just pops in. Yeah. I don't know where it comes from. It just seems so natural for me.
It's inner wisdom, man. Inner wisdom.
Yeah.
You're tuned into it. You know, it's
so cool.
It is. It's definitely cool. That's what I like doing when I coach people, is to show them how to connect to that. Because, and you know, I think that not a lot of people know that they have that. You know, because they're caught up in the psychology of things, or they're caught up in the intellectual things. And so I love working with people and showing them, look, there's a difference between your inner knowing and your intellect. And then I love showing the difference, you know, bringing them to that point where they kind of go, ah.
Yeah, it's like always been there, but nobody really points to that space. And we're like a very young age, our parents, like you had mentioned, I feel like they come from this like loving space of wanting to help you assimilate to the world. And so that's like a perpetual pattern that just keeps happening for generations and generations. Let's get them ready to like, you know, get into the world. And so you're taught like in school, like things that make you productive for society. Yeah. You're not taught how to be human, you know? And so it's interesting to see how, when I came to that understanding, really realizing, oh wait, that's always been there. Like I could see where it's always been there. I just wasn't always like aware of it. And I truly personally really believe that taking care of your physical and mental and emotional well-being is very key to being able to tap into that space easier, you know?
Yeah.
Like turn to home easier, because you have more of like the adaptation fuel for the day to respond, you know, to things as they arise. Because we all know life is kind of like, oh, here's some new shit. Like, you know, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know. But when we have really truly taken care of our hydration, our sleep, our body movement, you know, really taking care of ourselves, we are filled up with more of the capacity to show up more in alignment with our inner well-being, you know, in alignment with our wisdom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dog is hearing noise, so if you I apologize. So if you look at your life now,
Mm-hmm.
like did you dream it was going to be like this?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, it's so funny because in some ways, yeah, there actually are some things in my life that are kind of what I imagined them to be, right? I came from like childhood trauma. Like my household was very like that. In my early 20s was a lot of struggle, and like I was a teen mom. I left my home and was a single teen mom, you know, and I didn't have a degree and I worked like 3 jobs and put myself through school. I dropped out of high school. I got a GED. I went back, blah, blah, blah. So much of my like earlier years was just survival, you know? And so there wasn't a lot of, but obviously there was a space of dreaming, right? Because I dreamed that if I worked hard and that if I was a good person and I did the things that like that and saw the opportunities and took advantage of them, that there would be another level, you know? And so putting myself through school, getting my GED, all those little steps were part of the process where they were really exhausting while I was doing them. Yet there was like a sense of purpose for doing it. Right. Like having my son at a young age gave me a sense of purpose, you know, for him and obviously for myself too. I wanted it for myself too. I wanted to be the example. So, yeah, but even little tweaky weird things, you know, like I always wanted, I was telling you a little bit about the character of my house, right? That it has like stained glass windows and it has like arched doorways. I always wanted to live in an old house. I didn't live in an area where old houses were when this was like an idea that I had. And suddenly like I end up moving to Pittsburgh where you have no choice but to buy an old house. That's all that's available on the market, you know? So, you know, just different things are, you know, a lot like how I had seen them. And, even just being a nurse and getting the job where I'm at is something that was a goal of mine that ended up coming true, you know, because I guess the best way I can describe it is almost like if you are dreaming it and your focus is on it, it's almost like wanting to buy a car, like, oh, okay, I want to buy a Subaru. Well, then all of a sudden your awareness just starts seeing all the Subarus on the road, you know? So when you're dreaming something and you have that visualization in your heart, you start seeing all the opportunities along the way because you're like in tune with it. It's like your inner GPS just starts navigating you towards that.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is like I love what you just said. And then it reminded me, yeah, but you know, sometimes we have these dreams. Like I remember younger, I would have dreams, for example. Well, you know, people who've listened to my podcast before notice, but you know, like I had a dream, or I'm going to call it a goal, because to me it doesn't seem like a dream anymore. But the goal was to get married and have kids, you know, and you know, by 19 that I was engaged. And by 22, I was like, what am I doing? Get out, run, you know? And I'm still single. And I'm like, it's been a few decades. And
yeah.
I'm fine with it. Like it's no longer a goal. That's what I'm telling you. It was more of a goal than a dream, but maybe when I was in my 20s or in my teens, it was a dream. But it kind of changed, you know, like it was kind of like I was about to get it. And then I kind of like went, no, you know. Yet I remember when I quit my job when I was like in my 30s, my early 30s, I was working. I was there for 10 years and I had a good position. And when I left, you know, the thing that came out of my mouth whenever I'd wonder, what do you want to do? I was like, I just want to do what I want when I want. And, it's been 20 years and I do what I want when I want.
Nice.
And, and I, and, and I feel strange saying it because, it's not, people who take it literally, you do what you want when you want. It's more of a inside me. It's like, okay, I want this and I go for it. It's kind of like, and there was a difference. It was a different place. It was coming from a different place when I said it, So, yeah. What would you tell somebody that's like, okay, that has a dream and, they've been trying for years, to go towards that dream and it's just not happening and it's never going to happen. What would you say to these people if you had anything to say?
Yeah. So I think the first thing in that is that it's never going to happen is a roadblock to it happening. And we never really truly know whether or not it's going to happen or not happen. We do know that we significantly increase our odds if we keep trying for it. So that why power, like behind your reason for showing up for it, is for me the most motivating thing. I'm very clear on that. And we can do the right things for the wrong reasons, right? And we can also do the wrong things for the right reasons, So it's like, I can show up and maybe like come from this really warm heart space of like what I want to do for my wellness business. And I might choose a business coach that doesn't end up working for me or something else, right? Or like I might choose to do this thing and then realize, oh, well, that actually isn't in alignment later. But it's coming from that space, right? That is motivating for me. And there's always something to see in it, right? There's always some sort of learning life process that happens through that process. Yet, if I'm just showing up for something, for someone else, like that disalignment within myself, right? Like if the reason and why isn't there, that's like purposeful and aligned with me as a human and my values and those sort of things, like I'm not going to feel satisfied for it, even if it seems like the right thing to do, So I think that we really never know. I mean, a lot of people, they hold themselves back on building something. If we're talking like an entrepreneurial thing, endeavor, they'll hold themselves back thinking like their job is secure, and that the truth is like, no, it's never really actually, it has a feeling of secureness to it. But I mean, if we haven't learned anything from COVID, things can change outside of control at any moment. And it doesn't have to be a pandemic. I mean, companies go under, even really big companies, so yet there's always the resourcefulness, like the skills that I've gotten along my path, even though I'm on a totally different career path than what I started out years ago, right? And I'm almost seeing that shifting for myself again. And that comes with me. That doesn't leave because I changed careers. You just use those skill sets in like a different view. So, and you extend on them differently. So really the strongest asset we have is ourselves. Like that's actually what's making that job work, and what's keeping that job is us. It's not the job. Like we can get fired at any moment, but like our skills are going to go with us,
Yeah. I totally get that. It's funny because what comes to mind as I'm asking you the question, and I was like, what comes to mind is this. You're going to think I'm going to go left field, but here I go. Have you ever seen the movie with, oh goodness gracious, Italy, movie from a girl in Italy. Okay, I'm gonna say maybe you'll know the title. She divorced, she's an American, she divorced, she goes to Italy just for a trip to, forget the divorce. And as she gets out, she stops in this little city and she sees a house for sale and she buys the house. Under the Tuscan Sun is
Oh,
did you ever see this movie?
I feel like I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this movie, the girl, Diane Lane, I think Diane.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
feel it's Diane something. Anywho, she buys this house and she decides to move to Italy, and it's really really hard, like she buys a villa, for crying out loud. She basically she had just gotten half of the house from the divorce or whatever, and she put everything into this villa that's breaking down, and she's starting to build it, and she's learning the new weather, she's learning a whole new country that's totally different from hers, the language, everything. And she's really sad and she's really down on herself. And at one point somebody asks her, what do you want in this house? And she says, well, I want love in this house, and I want a wedding in this house, and I want family in this house. And she and she's thinking in that moment that she wants to get married, find a man, get married, get pregnant, and have children, lots and lots of children, right? And by the end of the movie, she adopted the guys that helped her build the house, and she made them her family. And the neighbor's kid and one of the kids, because there's a kid in the crew, falls in love with the neighbor's daughter, and they get married in the house. And one of her friends comes from the States, because she broke up with her, whatever, and she comes and she has a baby. So, at the end of the movie, the guy says basically, look around, what do you see here? And she was like, oh, I have family. Oh, I have children. Oh, I have love, and she was kind of looking at all of that. And it's like, sometimes we aim for something. It's like we think it's going to look a certain way. We think it's going to have the form that we're imagining it, that it's going to have. And what we're looking at, on a daily basis, that tells us that we've failed, is because we're looking for that form, and that form is not there.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just stay in the moment and not look for the form and be with what actually is,
Mm-hmm.
then your dreams can come true much faster than you even think.
It's true. That I can totally see that being possible, right? And also that movie, that story just made me also think of how we, especially when we're going through hard times, like we can start creating a story of what will make us feel better, right? And so then that's kind of like doing the right things for the wrong reason. Yeah. We don't need all of that to feel better. We can find peace and happiness alongside our darkest moments at any moment, and I've seen that as a nurse. I've seen people come in on their roughest days. I've seen people get the worst news. I've seen people lose loved ones, and I've seen people fight and battle cancer, and yet at the same rate have a joy and love and peace about them for life, And so it's like, I already know that to be true through what I've witnessed, but I also can say that in my own little experiences, they might not be as dramatic of a story, as such as like getting cancer and living through it, yet it's the same inner resilience that's built into us, that we can go back to like that inner well-being, and knowing that it's from that space that you can create from, right? That opens up so many opportunities to just keep going for it, right? Like, because you're not doing it to achieve that feeling state. You're doing it because you kind of want to do cool shit in the world. You know, like, you kind of want to see if it can happen or not, you know, and it's fun
doing cool shit in the world, man.
Yeah, it comes from a like space of fun and joy, and how much more like sustainable is that than a scarcity, like I must do this, or if it doesn't look like this, then I failed, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had the conversation with myself about failing many, many times, because like I said, I've done many, many things in my life, and sometimes, in one day could be cool, and then it could be not so cool, and then it could be cool, and then not so cool, and I just realized it's probably dark here. Am I dark?
A little bit, yeah.
I'm dark. Oh, I'm sorry, people. Hey, Google, turn on the light. Is it better?
Yeah.
Good. So I've had that conversation with myself about, oh, you're such a failure. You this, that, and the other. And I remember, my father is pretty hard on me, like in the sense, like my father is a doer. He's like me. He's like, just do it like this and do that and do this. And, he's a very big doer. And whenever I was beating myself up, and then he'd add on it, I'd tell him, hey, Dad, you don't need to beat me up. Like, I'm doing a great job on my own. Don't need it's like, it's okay. But it's just not useful.
Yeah,
and
not right. And then like that, coming from a space of that neutrality of like whether it's useful or not useful, kind of like takes out that personal narrative to the thinking or to the result, right, of whatever it is that you're trying to create. Like, oh, it was helpful or it wasn't helpful, and yet there's always something to see in that experience, an experience. And when you this just came to mind when you were calling your Google to turn on the light.
Yeah.
So my husband's a music composer, right? Okay. So he's like super creative. He's very like dreamy and aspirational and like, like very creative minded, and his friends and him will like create a bunch of music, and everybody's always like, what type of band is he in? And I'm like, no, it's like, it's not in a band. He makes really weird music. So one of the things that they did was his friend boyfriend does, what is it? I'm sorry, don't give me 1 second. He does the Alexa, right?
Yeah.
So hey Alexa. And so they did a music with Alexa and Siri talking to each other. Like they gave them cues, and then they like did music on the background, and it was like this whole performance art thing, and they just create whatever it is that they want to create, like people have a definition of music. And he's done things with like plants, like hooking them up to like electromagnetic stuff, and the plants, it's kind of like sonar.
I heard.
So, like,
I heard they have a voice.
Yeah, he's done a bunch of research with that, and like makes music with plants and stuff, and one day he's making music with plants, and one of our son's friends comes over, and he's like, what is your stepdad doing? It's like, making music with plants. His dad's a doctor. He's like, he was so into it though. He's like, that's really cool. So, it's like, my husband doesn't really ask permission of whether or not something's good. He does plenty of stuff that he's like, I didn't really like it. I didn't think it was that good. It's just something comes to mind. And it's like that like receiving the creativity and like popping it out, like that is part of the process, and getting better at like that part, because I'm like really good at receiving. I'm not always so great at the output end of things. Like I have a lot of ideas, and I think I just need a team of people to delegate to while I'm doing my other things. Like, okay, all right, you do this. I want it to look like that. All right, great. Like I'm gonna be like a prissy, like have other people do my dirty work for me.
Some people, well, I think we could probably chat another hour at the rate that we're going.
Yeah.
So I have a question that's been running through my mind. So I, um, okay. So you do these Instagram videos
Mm-hmm.
of you doing exercise,
Yeah.
and like you're smiling.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm smiling.
And I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with this woman?
Yeah. I should get pleasure out of that.
No, no, not really. I don't say that. I'm being funny.
I know.
But um it is a question, like, because you seem to really enjoy it. And that's something else earlier you were talking, like what kind of like the thing that you said is that the best time to take care of yourself is when you're healthy,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I totally agree with you. Um, and I'm not the best at taking care of my health. I do little things and I'm always telling myself I should do better. I should do this. And I don't appreciate what I already do.
Yeah.
Um, so, and right now that's exactly what I'm looking towards. And like you said, there's a lot of stuff out there. And if you listen to everybody, I should be eating, 5 bags of 5-pound carrots every day. uh I'm just making shit up because
It's
that's
probably out there somewhere.
you know,
It's probably
that's
that.
kind of like, you got to eat about 5 bags of vegetable, and then you got to have this shake, you have to have 24 of that shake, and then it's kind of like there's just way too much information. And it's also a subject that is very sensitive for me because I've been bullied and laughed at, and like that subject is not a subject that I like to talk about. So I kind of like just keep it to myself, and I look at my own stuff, and I kind of like it. I mean, I'm starting. It's opening up for me. Like in the past few months, it's been opening up. But I wanted to ask you, first of all, what would you tell somebody that is not necessarily in bad health, but needs a tune-up? I'm
Yeah.
just saying that. And what makes you smile when you exercise? Like there must be something in the background, like it's not faked. Like I can see it's not faked.
Yeah. So I think I'll answer the smile question first. I never really had a fitness routine, right? I just worked 3 jobs before.
Yeah.
So like I was just burning calories because I worked so much, right? And I worked a lot. And then I got like a desk job, and I honestly didn't like it. Was not a full-time desk job. It was like in between both, right? And I was like in clinic, but way more at the desk. It was like 40% desk time or 30% desk time. And it was a really high stress job. And I ate donuts every day because I actually just fantasized that I wanted to be the barista. Like, I was like, I want to leave. I used to be a bartender, and I was just like, I don't even know why I became a nurse. This is so stressful. I'd rather just eat this donut and sell coffee to people, like just that little like voice in your head that you can make up sometimes, right? Yeah. So I gained like, I don't know, I can't even remember, but like 50, 60 pounds, something like that in a very short period of time from being stressed and eating a donut every day pretty much, or eating cafeteria food or eating a Snickers because I was in a hurry. And I was in such a state of that like I just rinsed, repeat that habit for a few years. Like I want to say at least 2 or 3 years. And then I started feeling sick. I was very fatigued. I didn't have enough energy. I was starting to get to a point where I was like, babe, will you go upstairs and get my phone charger? Like, I don't want to, I'm too tired. And I got fed up with that. Like I didn't want to feel that way anymore. Right. And I too don't like dieting for that reason. Right. Like it's just like never been something sustainable. It's always short-lived, and it comes from a place of scarcity. We like, it's never lifestyle sustainable, right? So I come from like, I get more of the good. And so I think why I smile is because like I finally found something for myself. I finally found a routine that I like for myself. And that's because I gave myself permission to show up in whatever form I was willing to show up that day. I stopped making it like, I'm going to work out Monday and Wednesday and Thursday. I actually just do 30 minutes of body movement a day. I promise that to myself. And I allow that 30 minutes to be what feels right for me that day. You know, so I do a lot of like workout videos. I've never liked the gym, you know, so, and I'll walk with my dog or go for a little jog. I don't even like running. It just feels good to run sometimes, but I'm not like a runner, you know? So I just kind of do what feels good to me. Sometimes I just want to dance. And then that started bringing the joy back into it. Because it's not to like change the shape of my body, yet moving 30 minutes a day did change the shape of my body, you know? But it's never really like the actual reason for showing up. It was because I wanted to not feel like shit anymore. So that was actually the biggest motivating factor. I wanted to feel better. And it took a while for like my digestive system and stuff like that to like, you know, get back on track. And now I actually desire those foods. It's not even effort anymore. It's like what comes to mind. It's what feels good. And when I do, you know, I eat pizza, I eat whatever, but if I do it too many days in a row, I'll start to feel it again. I'll be like, oh, there's that gross feeling that I don't like anymore. So it's just so natural for me to veer away from it. And it's not coming from a headspace of like, I can't have, or I shouldn't have. It's coming from a space of like loving and caring for the only body that I'm going to have in my life. That's really what it is. It's like, coming from a place like honoring myself and turning off what other people are saying about it. Cause I just think eating is so natural. We're like born to eat. Like, why did we make it a science? You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's, yeah. And just starting where you're at, you know, so it might be like, oh, I don't like it today. And some days it pops in my head and I just do it anyways. And then I am like, oh, fuck, I feel great now. I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Yeah. So you can either email me at leaninyourvision@gmail.com or follow me on Instagram. And that's Crip Crunch. And yeah, I'm getting a website together. It's taken a while, but to be announced coming soon.
Continue. Yeah, it's I forget how they say it, in construction. Website.
Yes,
construction. Fantastic.
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was great to have you. I'm very happy. My dog's very happy to see you too, because she's like just like taking the whole room.
I know, she's so sweet.
So thank you for coming and joining me and accepting my invitation. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you got the goods. You got, you know, the thinking. I like it. So I hope that people give you a call. And
yeah, I love working with people, and I really love helping people see that it's already in them, you know, and really giving themselves permission to reinvent the wheel for themselves, reinvent the wellness wheel for yourself. You know, that's what I like, because it's actually going to be something sustainable because it comes from you, you know.
Cool. Well, people, go follow Amy, follow me, Coach Jasmine, and like my YouTube channel, and follow me everywhere that needs to be followed. Hope that today has inspired you, and that now you're ready to dream it, dare it, and do it. So yeah, thank you, everyone. See you next time.